Hey YouTube, what's going on? Son of Sanguinius here, and today I have another opinion, topic for you guys, and this is really a question, and it's something I got to think about as I was painting up some of my Assault Marines. Do you guys play Blood Angels alone? The classic, red with the gold and black and, a little bit of white thrown in there? Or do you guys play Successor chapters? Or do you even play other chapters, Do you play, Blood Angels with some, Ultramarines allies? Do you play Lamenters with some Salamanders allies? I'm curious, just to hear your guys' take on this. And I can tell you that for me personally, I do. And this is just something that I did personally, just to sort of add a little flavor to my army. I do have a fairly small contingent of Flesh Terrors in my army. Now, I should make it very clear that I don't have these guys as part of any separate detachment. Oftentimes, I bring these models as part of the same detachment, and really the difference in color scheme is really just there to add a little bit more flavor to the army, make it a little bit more interesting. And we know that the Flesh Terrors and the Blood Angels, since Gabriel Seth has sort of taken over, they've worked closely before, and especially in the Shield of Baal stuff, and not so much in the Angel's Blade stuff. That was almost exclusively Blood Angels, but certainly in Shield of Baal Exterminatus, the Blood Angels and Flesh Terrors were kind of fist bumping, and they were bringing the Angel's Wrath to those filthy Xenos. So what kind of interests me in the Flesh Terrors is I sort of see them as sort of the dark edge of the Sons of Sanguinius, and I do like how the sort of the darker red and the black really contrast well with the bright red and gold that I normally paint my Blood Angels as. I have sort of taken a few creative liberties as to how I've painted my personal Blood Angels. Personally, I like to paint the wings white. I know that they are supposed to be black, but I looked at the Death Company. I looked at a couple other characters as far as the Blood Angels are concerned, like Tycho, some of the Sanguinary Priests, and that kind of stuff. And they have white wings, and I really wanted my Blood Angels to appear more noble, more heroic, so that's why I kind of went with a white wing, scheme on them. Plus, my personal army, I made them to be the Third Company, the Iron Helms, which were Captain Tycho's company. And I created a mini narrative for myself that in honor of Tycho falling to the Black Rage and dying in battle, the Third Company has painted their wings white, as Tycho had his wings white at one point, sort of in honor of their former captain. So with the Flesh Terrors, though, with like a lot of the wings, I basically paint them gold or silver, but mostly gold, and then the blood drops and all that, just kind of nice. And like I said, I do like just the contrast with the darker red and the black against the brighter red and the gold and the white, and it just looks interesting to sort of see these two reflections of Sanguinius on the tabletop. And from the fluff perspective, I've read Trial by Blood and Sons of Wrath that were really great. I love both books. Sons of Wrath, is told from the perspective of Nasser Amit, who I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. But he was the captain of the Blood Angels' 5th Company in the Old Legion, and he was around when Sanguinius was still around. And it's really interesting. He was the first chapter master of the Flesh Terrors, and he never really got along with Azkalan, I guess like the I don't want to call him the captain of the Sanguinary Guard. I forgot Azkalan's rank. He was the top of the food chain in the Sanguinary Guard or whatever at the time. And Acer Ahmed basically, he never really got along well with Azkaban. He always thought he was sort of pompous and arrogant, and didn't really like the fact that Sanguinary Guard were keeping some secrets from the rest of the chapter, or the Legion at the time. And it was really interesting. And the Flesh Tearers, they always sort of struck me as kind of a dark reflection of the Blood Angels, and they were kind of good guys, but kind of not. I mean, they've committed some absolutely horrible atrocities. It's actually kind of amazing that they haven't been declared renegade yet, if I'm being perfectly honest. But they always sort of struck me as the heart, kind of the bad boys of the Sons of Sanguinius. I do like their sort of we don't give a hoot about whatever. What the Inquisition says. They've never once backed down from the Inquisition. They've always met their challenges head on, and I do like I do sort of like that sort of hard edge that they bring. And also I find their paint scheme interesting. It's no secret that the Blood Angels successors have always had kind of very similar color schemes. I mean, like, you look at the Angels Vermilion, and it's like, okay, well, aside from the little skull and the blood drop, what the hell is the difference? Angels and Carmine are kind of the same thing, although they have a little bit of difference with their, they incorporate a little bit more black into their color scheme, but whatever. I currently have, a little bit of Flesh Tearers sprinkled in my army, and I like the fluff, I like how they look, and it's nice. And like I said, I do sort of incorporate them into, the same detachments and stuff like that. So, I tend to bring, 2 tactical squads in a lot of my lists. And one tactical squad has a Rhino and his Blood Angels. The other tactical squad, has a Rhino and his Flesh Tearers. And I both equip them the same. They have, the same upgrades, same war gear, whatever. They just look a little bit different. So hopefully I won't confuse my opponent too much with that, and I'd be willing to, sit down and explain everything. But anyway, the Flesh Tearers are not the only successor chapter of the Blood Angels that I'm interested in. Personally, I find the Knights of Blood interesting because they're sort of an excuse to, go up against Imperial armies and stuff like that, and still have it fit, thematically within the fluff, because the Knights of Blood are renegades. And I do remember, charging, an Imperial Guard line, and I just got absolutely slaughtered. I don't know if he had veterans with a whole bunch of hotshot las guns or what, but wow, it was pretty bad. It was a shameful display for the Blood Angels there. It was pretty bad, and so at least if I played Knights of Blood, I could say, well, they're renegades and they don't really care, and that's great. And, it gives you an excuse to fight, other Imperial forces on the tabletop and be bickering about who's the true heretic and all that kind of good stuff. But the other one that I do find interesting is the Lamenters, because they have quite possibly the worst luck in 40k. And whether you win or lose, it's thematic. If you get completely demolished as the Lamenters, that fits perfectly within the fluff. If you manage to win, flawlessly, that also kind of fits in the fluff, as the Lamenters do have, a track record of successful victories, but wow, they just get absolutely destroyed no matter which way they turn, and it's sad. And I think the other reason why I'm interested in the Knights of Blood and Lamenters too is because, kind of like the Flesh Tearers, they have sort of kind of the most deviant, no, that's not the correct word, the most divergent color schemes. Not deviant, they're not heretical. The Knights of Blood, maybe. But the most divergent color schemes from the Blood Angels. And it's kind of like the thing that sucks about a lot of their successor chapters. Like, you look at, the Angels in Carmine, Angels Vermilion, Angels Sanguine. They all just kind of look they look too similar to me, Then you turn around and you look at the Ultramarine successor chapters. You have every color and scheme under the sun. They're all very different. They have their own kind of theme or whatever. And it's like with Blood Angels, it's like if they don't have a whole bunch of blood drops and wings all over them, I get it. Then they're not really true Sons of Sanguinius. But some divergent color schemes and all that I find to be very refreshing, and I do like the fact that That's represented in the Knights of Blood and the Lamenters. Unfortunately, they didn't really get a whole lot of place in the 7th edition Blood Angels Codex, which sucks because, frankly, I find their paint schemes to be some of the more interesting ones as opposed to the former ones that I just listed. So, moving on from, the Blood of Sanguinius, are there any other Space Marine chapters that I personally find interesting? There are a couple, quite a few, as a matter of fact. Firstly, if I had to, sort of ally with any other Space Marine chapter, I would probably go Imperial Fists. For a couple of reasons. One, I do like the theme of the Imperial Fists. They have, a legacy of being, excellent defenders, excellent siegers, and they do have, as far as like the old, Legion is concerned, they do have a record of being some pretty formidable close combat fighters. Granted, most of those guys, kind of went with by the way of the Black Templars, but I still, like the idea of, having at least, a couple Imperial Fists as part of, Vanguard veterans or something like that are, really sort of hardened, close combat fighters, and, I do like that. The other thing, too, is the cool rules. Combining, the fast, deep striking assault of the Blood Angels with the sort of, gunline re-rolling, ones with bolters and all that jazz with the Imperial Fists. I feel like Blood Angels, Blood Angels Assaulty Army allied with an Imperial Fist Shooty Army is a very deadly combination. And I think, like I said, the theme's cool, the rules are cool. And the paint scheme is decent. I have actually seen some of the Heresy-era veterans or whatever with, like, the black armor, like the metallic-y black armor with, like, the yellow highlights and all that. I think those look awesome. Frankly, if I was to do an Imperial Fist army, I think I'd probably paint, like, a couple of my sergeants or whatever like that and be like, yeah, well, I know that, that's not really, their thing anymore. I may also throw in like some Black Templar bits in there as well, just because like I just really, I don't know what it is, I just really like the looks of the Imperial Fists, the Horus Heresy era Imperial Fists. They just look awesome to me. But moving on from them, Grey Knights, Demon Hunters, who doesn't like some Demon Hunters, they have some of the cooler, war gear, looking power armor, their Nemesis Force weapons and all that stuff. And they have some, some cool toys, cool fluff, decent allies depending on who you're going up against. You can, have some shenanigans going on with there, especially if you're going up against, chaos of any, way, shape, or form. Moving on from them, Dark Angels. I think the Dark Angels have some interesting lore. I'm actually kind of curious to see where they're going to go with that as far as, the current fluff is concerned with, the Gathering Storm and Luther and, all that good stuff. Their paint scheme is interesting, too. The green, the dark green of their power armor kind of contrasts nicely with the bright red of the Blood Angels. And on the tabletop, I think them fighting side by side would actually look pretty good. And their tactics do sort of blend nicely with a Blood Angels army. And I sort of look at the Dark Angels as being the epitome of the Hammer and Anvil. So, you have the Death Wing, the Terminators being sort of the Anvil, and then you have the Raven Wing being sort of the Hammer, flanking in from both sides. And so if I did have like an army of Dark Angels, I probably would do like a mixed wing kind of thing. I wouldn't be all Raven Wing, wouldn't be all Death Wing, wouldn't be all Green Wing either. There would probably be some, mix and matching and combination of the two. Just because, that's kind of like how I like to play, and it's I find that would be, much more interesting than having like a whole army of Terminators, which, let's be fair, with the Archangel's Orbital Intervention Force, I kind of already have that already. So, but that's the Dark Angels. So moving on from them, the Carcharodons. This one is interesting. I think I first heard about them with some of the Bad Ab War stuff, and I mainly like them for the fluff because they're supposedly descended of the Raven Guard. Although I've heard rumors that they may not actually be from the Raven Guard, and I do like the fact that they're sort of berserk Madden killers that aren't descended from the Blood Angels. So that's interesting, and they're kind of feared just like the Flesh Terrors are, and at least with the Kakarodons, their paint scheme would be fairly easy to paint. And I know that that's, that can't be said of every army out there, especially with something like Imperial Fists, which are, that sort of that bright yellow and all that. But Kakarodons, I feel like I could probably, paint them up quick, paint them up decent, in a reasonable amount of time. And, it would mainly just be, for another assaulty, heavy thing that borrows from Space Marines, really. But moving on from them, we also have the Black Templars, mainly for the looks and the fluff. They're kind of redundant allies because they specialize in, ground-based assault, which, frankly, I don't really think Blood Angels really need any help in the assault department. I think we're pretty good. If we were going to get some assaulty allies, I'd probably go with Raven Guard with their, double jump packing and their infiltrating. The Black Templars, they have, Adamantium Whale Crusader, that kind of deal. Although I haven't really I haven't really taken a good look at what they've got in the new Angels of Death book, but I don't know. I just feel like the Black Templars would be pretty much redundant allies, but they do look cool, and their fluff is awesome, and it's nice. And lastly, I do have sort of a pondering interest in the Crimson Fists. I do like their fluff, fighting against the orcs on Rin's World, and I sort of see them as kind of like being like a small, kill team type army that I would kind of have on the side if I ever wanted to play kill team, with some of my buddies or something like that. And like I said, it's mainly just for the fluff. I feel like if I was going to do Crimson Fists, I would definitely paint them like really dirty, kind of run down armor and all that. Kind of rusty. Some really weathered effects on them. I would want to create like a the survivors of Rin's World, basically, with the Crimson Fists, and that's kind of what I would do if I started collecting them. But for right now, I really just have the Flesh Terrors that I have sort of incorporated into my army. I basically, I don't put them in any special detachment or anything. I have, 2 tactical squads that are basically upgraded the same way with the same upgrades and everything. It's just one of them I painted Blood Angels, the other one I painted Flesh Terrors. Same with my, not with my Vanguard Veterans, those I have done slightly differently, but same with Assault Marines. One of them I painted up to be Blood Angels, the other one I painted up to be Flesh Terrors, but they're both upgraded with the same stuff. So that's just me, personally, and I'm very curious to hear what you guys have to say. Do you guys play Successor chapters exclusively? Do you guys have some Successor chapters as allies or just incorporate it into your force like I have done? Or do you even bring other chapters into battle with you? I'm very curious to hear what you guys have to say down below in the comment section below. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.